the Fiesta Bowl. Number 3, TCU versus number 2, Michigan.
All right, so this is tailor-made for the Michigan Wolverines to go to the national championship game. They're favored by 7.5. It's a bigger spread than Georgia and Ohio State. And this is a team that has put themselves in the rarefied air of being one of the best teams in the country over the last 18 months. I told you that Georgia is the best team in the country over the last 18 months. And as far as the record goes, Michigan is the second best team over the last 18 months in college football. 25-2 since the start of last season. Only Georgia is better. Ohio State is third, by the way, at 22-3. That's what kind of makes this playoff so good. And this Michigan team, they have been totally rebuilt in the last 2 years. Jim Harbaugh has done an outstanding job. This coaching staff has done an outstanding job. They know exactly who they are, and they know exactly how they want to beat you, and they do it in a slow, suffocating fashion. They're so confident in the way that they are built from a physical standpoint and the fact that they can run the ball when they want to, that they're good at the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively, that they just stay patient until the second half. And there is no better second half team in college football than the Michigan Wolverines. They are outscoring their opponents by almost 16 points per in the second half this year. Their point differential is plus 206 just in the second half. So this team gets better every single moment. That's why you don't see them panic much in the first half. Okay, we played a close first half. I hear from all the coaches out there that face them. There's like, everybody's been close with them at halftime. We just got to stay close. We just got to be close in the fourth quarter. And there was really only one team that did that, and that was Illinois. Even Maryland never had a possession to take the lead. They never had the ball with the ability to take the lead. And Illinois was able to do that. So only one. Okay, so when you look at Michigan, you look at Georgia even, there was really only one game all year that they were like maybe in some trouble late. Illinois for Michigan and Mizzou for Georgia. So this is a team that they just won't panic. They don't care if it's close. They'll just continue to hammer away with that run game. And now what you've seen, without Blake Corum, albeit, and he was such an impactful piece of this game and this team for them, but without Blake Corum, they've changed a little bit. They've actually become what I would say is a little bit more explosive. It's hard to prove that with the numbers, but what I see in the Ohio State game and against Purdue in the Big Ten Championship is a team that can hit home runs, both in the passing game and in the run game. Donovan Edwards has been sensational since Corum went down. He had 216 yards against Ohio State, backed it up with another 185 against Purdue. And this is a guy that's very dynamic. He makes people miss. This is a team that I think is very, very good. Defensively, they have exceeded expectations. They lose Aiden Hutchinson. They lose David Ojabo. They're somehow better statistically. You look up at this point in the year, and the last time Michigan allowed a passing touchdown in the second half, Iowa. That was October 1st. Like, this is a really good team, and I think that people around the country just view them as like, well, they were able to sneak up and get Ohio State again. Listen, they are every bit the equal of Ohio State, and I think that this year they might be every bit the equal of even Georgia with their run game, with their ability to play defense, and with the emergence of some young players. Okay, so look at some of these young players and what they're doing late. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy, their quarterback, he's played very well late, in particular with explosive passes down the field. Donovan Edwards is a young player. He stepped up for Blake Corum, and he's been fantastic. Couple of freshmen that all of a sudden are in really meaningful spots and will be in focal point spots in this game against TCU. Will Johnson, the corner, who had 2 interceptions in that Big Ten championship game, and Colston Loveland, the tight end. This is a really good team. They're great up front. Both sides of the ball. They've built that run front to stop the run with guys like Mozzie Smith in there at defensive tackle. They play hard edges, hybrid linebackers. And this is a team that knows exactly how to get off the field in the red zone. I just talked about it in the other matchup in that Peach Bowl, about the way that Georgia understands, like, okay, we'll bend, don't break, and then we're going to get off the field in the red zone. Well, that's exactly what Michigan does. Georgia is number 1 in the country in red zone touchdown percentage on defense. Michigan, number 3 in the country in red zone touchdown percentage. That's one of the reasons they beat Ohio State. They've only allowed 2 touchdowns in their last 10 red zone trips, so they're actually getting better here towards the end of the year. This is a really good team, and if you're looking at some keys for me, this is what I would tell Michigan. Be the bully, okay? Like, the Frogs have been tested, and they're gritty. They're not your equal at the line of scrimmage, so, like, be the bully. I don't think Michigan needs to get cute at all. So very similar to what I would say to Georgia, right? Like, be yourself. Like, Michigan, be yourself. Test them. Hammer away with those body shots. You know, you're the tougher team. So it's incumbent on them to prove that they can stay, right? And I would say the same thing to Georgia. I would say also for Michigan, like, be aggressive. Be aggressive. This is one thing that I'm looking at towards the end of the year. And I'm like, you know, if there was one thing I would want to see more out of their offense in particular, it would be play action pass. They're so good running the football, and J.J. McCarthy is one of the best quarterbacks in the country in play action pass, that this is a moment where it's like you can get some big plays. And this is not a play action game that is utilized to attack down the field like, let's say, Ohio State's is, or even Georgia's is, or TCU's is. Their play action pass is more, well, how would I define? Let me just try to define it to you this way. Play action pass is when you give a hard run fake and you set up in a pass protection, and then you have a route concept read out by the quarterback with a pass protection. Okay, and you're generally setting up inside the pocket or on a little bit of a half roll. Run action pass is when you give a hard fake, like in zone, and then you naked outside of the pocket. So then you're getting outside. So this is what I would call like a full flow run action pass. Well, when you run action pass, it's not necessarily a concept being attached to that, and you don't have a protection attached to it. What you're doing is creating levels, and then everyone's dragging into those levels from a passing game standpoint. That's what they do really well, run action pass. Play action pass is much more deadly. And if they sit in the play action pass game, I think that they're going to be able to create some big plays. TCU's defense is not a great defense. Okay, so they're going to be able to establish the run. And once they do that, be aggressive. That's what I would say. Get in that play action. Get in that play action. And then for their defense, you've got to understand, like, this defense is built to face a team like TCU. TCU has a good NFL-style running back, right? They got a quarterback that can get loose, use his legs. They've got a really good matchup problem on the outside in Quentin Johnston. So this defense, what do you need? You need hybrid players. You need to spy the quarterback. Well, they can do that. When they're in their nickel defense, I would expect guys like Mike Sainristil still to be in there spying Max Duggan at times. Their linebacker core, spying Max Duggan. Junior Colson could be one of those guys. These are going to be important types of calls for Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, because the one thing you can't do is allow Duggan to get going with his legs. That leads me to TCU. This is just the team that just won't stop. 5 second-half comebacks. And I thought that they were going to complete their 6th in that Big 12 championship game. I do find it fascinating that it's like TCU's not going to get panicked if they're down in the first half, and yet there's no better second half team than Michigan. So what do they have to do? TCU's got to get a lead in this game. They've got to play from the front. This cannot be a game in which, you know, they're like, oh, you know, we went down by a couple scores. Well, now Max is going to run around. I don't think that they can do that against Michigan and succeed. What they need to do is create explosive plays early in the game. They need to try to capture a lead. Well, how do you do that? Well, number one, you allow Max Duggan to throw the ball down the field. And he's one of the best in college football doing that. In fact, when you look at Duggan, he's got 68 attempts of 20 yards downfield or more. And he's very efficient completing those down the field. In fact, he's got 18 TD throws on throws that go 20 yards in the air. That's the most in all of college football this year. Okay, so let him sit there, right? If I'm Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator, if I'm Sonny Dykes, I need the lead. So what am I going to do? I'm going to test those secondary players from Michigan. If Will Johnson's out there and they want to put Will Johnson, the young corner, on Quentin Johnston, go after him right away. Test him. And I think that those shots are going to be critical early in the game. Quentin Johnston is a matchup nightmare, right? Like, this guy against anybody, even a very good corner, is tough to defend. He's 6'4", he's 215 pounds. When he's healthy, he's as explosive as any wide receiver in college football. I think he's got a great chance to be a top 10, top 11, top 12 pick in the NFL draft. And your quarterback is very efficient throwing the ball down the field against a team that, if you get into a kind of a second half like slugfest, they're the best at that in the country. So go run away. If I'm TCU, man, I'm going out. I'm going out fast. Isn't that what Seabiscuit did, right? Seabiscuit, go out. Get out there fast and run hard. I know that that's a bad analogy because, right, like Tobey McGuire's like, hey, you got to pull him back a little bit and let him see in his eyes. Maybe Duggan is Seabiscuit, right? You got to pull him back, and then he's going to get a sniff right there in the back stretch, and then, like, let him go because the guy has the heart of a lion. That's the other thing that they're going to need to do is that they're going to need to find a way to allow Duggan to threaten the defense with his legs. So create big plays in the passing game and get Duggan loose on the edge. Now, part of that is going to be their ability to run the football outside of Duggan. And if they can do that with Kendre Miller, that's great. Not many teams have been able to run the football, and Michigan doesn't really care if you run it kind of good because they're great in the red zone. So listen, this is a tough matchup for TCU. I don't think TCU is going to win. I do think Michigan is going to win because for TCU, they're going to have to play a game that is different than what they want to play, right? Like, this is a team that comes back in the second half. You can't do that against Michigan with their run game. So this is going to have to be a different style of game for TCU. They're going to have to get out quick, create big plays, hang on in the end rather than, moving forward. And for those reasons, I think Michigan wins, and I think Michigan covers the 7.5. I love TCU. I love Max Duggan. You know that. I've talked glowingly about them and their run during the course of this season. I just feel like they're going to meet their match. Again, Michigan is one of the best teams in the country. And I think that Michigan wins. They cover the 7.5. And I think that they're going to play Georgia in the national championship in SoFi Stadium on the 9th.